This episode of Charlotte. I was told last week by fellow Chibits on Twitter and in the comments that this episode, according to the writer, I think his name is June, according to the writer, this episode was going to be vastly different and things were going to start picking up. That's what a lot of you Chibits told me last week. So, of course, I was really looking forward to this episode because I actually love Charlotte. Regardless of some of the issues I've had in previous episodes, I like the series because there's a lot of potential. A lot of good potential. And after seeing this episode, it seems like that potential is being used. Because now, there's a bigger thing at stake than just, oh god, we can be experimented on and killed. There's actually a bigger thing at stake now. Let's consider the destruction magnitude at the end of the episode, okay? Let's just take a few moments to process this. The little sister got a new ability called Collapse. And this ability, according to my understanding from witnessing what I saw in this episode, it destroys and collapses anything around her. For instance, like, let's say you're standing in maybe a 10-story building, and you're on the 8th story, and you use Collapse, the entire area around you will fucking just shatter and just collapse to the damn ground. So, that is scary in of itself, but it gets even worse, because with an ability called Collapse, that would mean that if you're standing on the ground, let's say dirt, okay, just, let's classify as dirt or rock, whatever, and this ability comes into effect, think about how bad that is. Just think about it for a second, okay? If this ability does the exact same amount of damage it does to what we saw it do to concrete, like shatter concrete and crack it and then the school collapses, if it can do the exact same thing it did to that to like dirt and rock and do that same effect, that is devastating. And the scary part about this is like, we don't know the range, like the range size of something of this type of ability. Like, let's also factor in many details. What if there was like a giant-ass cave somewhere, like a giant-ass pocket, which happens. There is caves that are massive underneath the ground that none of us really know of. Like, we probably, if you go to work and travel miles, let's say 10 to 15 miles or whatever to work, or whatever, how long it takes you to get to work, or whenever you go outside or do whatever, you might not realize you're going over large-ass caves. It's a possibility. And what would happen if the little sister is above a cave or something, a huge-ass, like, fucking pit, and this ability comes into effect? Just think about that for a second. And it's not just that either. The ability user also gets affected. It's not just around, it's even underneath her. And so, she's putting her own life in danger when she uses this ability. It's like trying to kill yourself. That's really what it is. Like, if you use this collapse ability, you're gonna die. You're gonna fucking die because everything's gonna collapse on top of you, which we witnessed at the end of the episode. And I don't know how to take the ending because there's many ways I can process this ending right now. For one of the obvious ways you can assume, or two obvious things, is A, the sister is dead. Because the way the rubble fell on top of her, like it just fell and collapsed in on her, and the way she fell like she did, and then the way the beginning of the episode, like, I want to take a few moments to just show you some of the foreshadowing, or some of the setup that was kind of preparing us for the ending of this episode. At the beginning of the episode, we see it to where, the dude that says he can teleport, but it's actually just super speed, he gets kicked out the damn window, and he falls, and then suppose he has this protective armor on and stuff, and, he's fine. That's what was said at the beginning, and this is a dude that's used to this type of pain. And if you consider the details with that, and then put it on top of the little sister falling, it's like showing us that this sister cannot survive. She's not used to this type of shit. That's kind of what it was trying to imply. And I felt like it was a very subtle way to hint at the ending of this episode with her falling and most likely dying. Because if you were to fall like that, you're gonna fucking die. You could fall 5 feet or even 1 foot and you can die. Seriously. It's It happens. Humans can fall one wrong way and you can just fall to the ground and you're dead. And so, for her to fall like she did with concrete on top of her, I'm going to assume she's dead. But judging by the track record of these type of series, I don't necessarily 100% believe that. But there was blood. There was blood at the end of the episode. If you watch past the ending, like the credits and stuff, you see blood coming out of concrete. And first things first, what I think it's making us try to assume, that it is the MC. I think that's what they're trying to make us assume it is, because the way the rock fell on top of him at the end, and the way it was done, it makes you assume that it most likely it was him that was bleeding and probably dead. But I don't think so. I think, personally, either the blood is a random student, like some form of student of the school, or it is the sister. One or the other. The one or the other, that has to be it. But I will say right now, I will say this is the best episode of Charlotte yet. Like, the first episode's very fucking good, but this lives up to the potential that the first episode gave us when we watched this series. Like, many of us have had, I think, the same issues that I think I've had for the past couple weeks. You know, how it felt very episodic and it was doing the exact same format every single week with just a little bit of a different setting, and a lot of us were kind of getting tired of that, let's be honest. And I'm glad, after witnessing this episode and sticking with the series, I see this good revelation, because I knew this series was going to get darker, somewhat dark, because the writer and the studio and all that shit, you know, and Key being attached to it, just, I knew this was going to be somewhat dark, because they have a track record. And so I expected something to happen, and I'm glad I stuck around to see what was going to happen. And now, after witnessing this episode, I definitely am going to continue watching this now, because I want to see how the events unfold, because with the disaster of a collapse, this puts so many lives in danger. And what is the government going to do about this? Like, how are you supposed to explain this to parents? Like, if one day, you know your child is in this special school for power-wise, like, you know your student or child or whatever is in this school, what is the government or the backlash from the parents going to be like when they find out that a student caused this mess and endangered the lives of their children? This is going to be bad. It's going to be fucking bad. And I feel like that's also where this is leading. It's not just repercussions of someone being captured and experimented on, but the devastation of what we saw in this episode was actually big enough, probably to warrant scientists and big organizations to discover that this girl probably has the power, and they want to grab her before they can use it probably for warfare. I mean, think about this. I mean, if you're, I guess, a high up there in some corrupt organization, or, you know, a nation or country or whatever, and you want a weapon, what better way to have a weapon than use a little girl that can fucking collapse buildings? Think about it for a second. Like, just picture this as if she was a weapon. Like, I know it's wrong, but countries or nations or whatever would look at her as if she's a weapon and use her ability to destroy things. Think about that. So, it goes to show you that this is a very scary thing indeed, because any country that knows about something like that and that's power are going to want to get their hands on her, because that's a pretty deadly ability. Way more deadly than taking over someone's body or using fire or anything like that. Yes, those are devastating abilities, but nothing on terms of the level of collapse to where you can destroy fucking buildings like nothing. Like, no matter the integrity of the building, like, no matter what it's probably made of, she can just collapse it. That's not good. That's really not good. So no matter how much you reinforce a building or whatever, it's gonna fucking collapse. So that's the point I wanted to stress. So major issues popping up, a lot of drama, great episode of Charlotte. Cannot wait for next week. Tell me your thoughts in the comments below. You have a wonderful day or night wherever you live. Please be safe. Chibi out.